Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blues Talk. Again, John, Dave and myself are going to review our disappointing loss against Toulon in the semi-final of the European Cup and look forward to our game against Ulster on Friday night. Well boys, 25-20 after extra time over in the Velodrome in Marseille. Probably our best performance of the year, but still disappointing to walk away with a loss.
Mixed feelings.
Yeah, I think to quote the Rolling Stones, you're not the only one with mixed emotions. Very proud of the team. I mean, this was a clash of the winners of 5 of the last 6 Heineken Cups, or European Cups as we must now call them. It's only the second European Cup semi-final to go to extra time
in history.
In history. It wasn't a game full of entertainment. It might have been a game that the purists would enjoy because there was some bad stuff, but there was some good stuff going on in there as well. I mean, there was some clever rugby being played, just not obvious stuff. But at the end of the day, we lost, and Toulon's money marches on.
Yeah, well, you're always going to say that when they win, aren't you? You know.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're right.
They can't win when they win.
I mean, you are right. No, he's right. He's right. It was a cheap comment. I mean, I agree. But that's when you spend that much money on a team. That's what people are going to say.
I know, but the demise of other nationalities rugby has been kind of overstated by the media. Anyway, it's always the French money is this, that, and the other, and it's a bit of a fallacy, really, because we've just got this production line of kids coming through and through and through. Whereas, they're not producing anyone But apart from that, I thought both teams kind of, maybe we were talking about it earlier. I don't know whether they were affected by the nerves or whether they shouldn't have been. They've all played at the highest level, but it was a monsoon there. I'm not sure if it came across as terrible as it was on the telly, but it just was.
Never does.
It was incessant rain, and right near.
Is that rain that has sex with its children? Oh, never mind.
But yeah, no.
Well, no. What I mean, say in the first couple of minutes, they put a kick. They had the penalty, so they kicked the ball away rather than try and run with it. They kicked the ball away, and it landed on inside our dead ball line, and there wasn't a Toulon player within 10 metres of it. Yet McFadden then fumbled it, and Carney couldn't get the subsequent tap down.
And thankfully Nigel
Owens was awake.
Although I would argue that Carney did get the touchdown in the world of refereeing that gave Pienaar the touchdown last week.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. No, but my point is that we saw in that little brief cameo of play, there was so many errors just condensed into that period of play. And there was an awful lot of errors.
But isn't that always the way with rugby? I mean,
especially
first rule of rugby is when it's coming down, put it up. I mean, how many times have you heard that? I mean,
yeah.
I think both teams had a game plan that they were going to, or adopted their game plan to the conditions.
Yeah.
Right. I think they were slightly better than ours because our kicking game was, we've said it before and we'll say it again. Our kicking game was not good. Our kicking game might have been good. Our chase game was terrible. Actually, no, our kicking game was poor. I mean, because we kicked 2 kickoffs dead. I mean, that's
I'm not 100% convinced that those 2 kickoffs were not on purpose.
I am 100% certain
to get a
that they
scrum
weren't.
back on the halfway line.
We're not. It's not Italy in 1999 or whatever it was. I'm 100% convinced that those were not on purpose.
Okay, well, I just threw that one in.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm 99% convinced.
I mean, but the thing is, just to take John's point on further, that's one area where we were very good was actually in the scrum. Our front 4 were brilliant. I mean, our front row of McGrath, or of Healy, Cronin, Ross and O'Brien were superb.
Yeah, well, they were slightly illegal at times, but hey, at least they didn't stick the shoulder into someone while 25 yards offside and not get guarded. But however, our scrum was great. Our line-out was pretty good too. We even scored a try from a maul, which that hasn't happened in the recent history of Leinster rugby. So we've been giving Leo Cullen a bit of a kicking, but I think he got it right this time. And Caputo
we did kick the ball into touch on the full a couple of times.
Well, you can't.
We did kick the ball dead and we threw a beautiful pass that was intercepted.
I just feel so bad for Manzer. I'm
Well,
sure we'll get to that later.
He
but
kicked great in the game,
did.
like from the place.
His
ball.
goal kicking was very good.
Yeah. But it was unfortunate that that the ball hit the post. Actually, hit the post twice during the game.
one from
Goppert's
Goppert and one
conversion,
from.
I mean, the question about Madigan has always been he's got all the skills, has he got the temperament? And that's the question that still exists after the match. It'll be
I
interesting
don't
to see.
know if temperament is the right word though, Dave.
Well, okay, by temperament I mean, is he going to make the right decisions at the right time in the high pressure games?
Yeah, I don't even think it's the pressure. I think he's fine under pressure. I just think shot selection is not always. I don't think it's the pressure that gets to him. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but like
You just think he makes bad choices?
Perhaps, but if he had a problem with pressure, he wouldn't be able to kick
No, it's true.
goals the way he does. Like,
But you see, I think that if you look at who he's playing with, right? For instance, if he is playing with Goppert, he's challenging for Goppert for that position. Now, the way it's kind of panned out under O'Connor, Gotpert's generally been picked at 10 and Madigan's at 12. So he's not really, I wouldn't say respect, that's probably the wrong choice of words, but there's a rivalry between the two players. When Sexton comes back, and if Sexton plays at 10 and he plays at 12, you got to listen and sort of take your lead from Sexton, because we're signing possibly the best out half in the world next season. So whoever's playing at 12 has to.
who's going to be
respect him.
chucking him the ball though? Is the thing. Two guys who can, they're both great. But I suppose if you have both of them all season and they can both manage a half, like I mean they're getting on.
I think both are scrum halves. I was very pleased with how both of them played.
Ross had a great game.
I thought they both played very well.
I was on Sunday, all right.
I
Yeah.
thought they both played very well. But it will be another
Previous
year.
week,
They
not
will
so
be another
much.
year older. I think maybe I'm being. I don't want to be harsh on because I mean, in terms of the actual scoreline, maybe it is what decided the game. But the actual the game wasn't won or lost because of one mistake that one player made.
No.
Because other players made mistakes and kind of got away with it, and we could have gone back up the pitch, etc., etc., etc. So that's neither here nor there.
You know what lost first? When we had the extra man advantage,
And they scored 10 points.
they scored 10 unanswered points.
Yeah.
Like, it's the boys are out on their feet after playing like they're, you know what I mean? Like a lot of players only play 60 minutes and then they come on, reserves come on. These guys some of them were asked to play 100 minutes of rugby, and when they're out on their feet and they still can't put away a team with a man down, like.
Well, they should have been outer on their feet than we were because they're older.
They have experience and they have probably a stronger bench to come on.
They have a stronger bench, but like don't forget you've 7 guys. You've only got 8 in the bench, so you've 7 guys have to play 100 minutes.
Yeah.
No matter what you do. Even if you bring all your subs on, which we did, which they did as well, I think. But Ali Williams didn't play a full game because he was off for 10 minutes. Suta and Botha shared the rest of the game. Botha, I think, played about 70 minutes, did he? So therefore Suta was on for 30. Their duties were divvied up, but where it went wrong when they did lose the second row, where it went wrong for us, I think, was we conceded the 3 points, and I think there was 10 minutes left at that stage, and I think they just kind of panicked a little bit and went, geez, we better get a score here because they're tiring. And Madigan made that split-second decision and just decided to pass it.
It's just a bad decision. I mean, he's got a 3-on-2, maybe a 4-on-2 outside him.
Yeah, and Carney's running into the line as we speak.
It was just a bad decision. And then, I mean, it's never the right decision to skip when you've got an overlap, right? It's never the right decision. And then to execute it badly it was just unfortunate. An unfortunate confluence of events. I mean, the guy stood up and he's taken responsibility for it. I mean, which you have to admire. I mean, you really do.
Yeah.
Because it must be killing him. It must really be killing him. But at the same time, this is a fucking dreadful pass.
Yeah.
There's no reason for that pass in rugby whatsoever. In terms of the bigger picture, it's unfortunate for Madigan. I think it's good that, but sometimes maybe you have to play the game the right way and not just be trying to play a fancy pass.
Well, the game was on a knife edge, and right decision, wrong decision. I just hate to see him pilloried for it.
Oh no, it's not about. I mean, it's about analysing an event in the match.
Well, people have also said that if Tio had just run a different angle, and you could see him giving Tio the nod, if he had made the pass a yard further back and Theo had a run a slightly different
if Jimmy
angle,
Gotford had thrown that pass, would people
oh,
have
he'd
been...
be
He'd
slaughtered.
be murdered for
He'd
it.
be
He would be murdered
slaughtered.
for it. I mean, he would have been taken off the airplane in Dublin Airport, staked out, and they would have allowed jumbos roll over him. Right? That's what would have happened to him. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, thank God it wasn't him. But you know, Madigan is one of his accuracy of pass is one of his best things. You know,
Yeah.
so he's got to have the confidence to throw the
Well,
pass.
he was playing for 90 minutes. He was probably tired.
He was.
The ball was probably like a piece of
A
soap.
bar of soap, yeah.
And
Habana was probably
and
tired
the
as
ground
well,
was
though.
probably quite soggy because it was
And he
lashing
caught it.
rain.
My problem with it isn't so much that he was intercepted. Right? If he'd thrown that pass and the pass was caught by a Leinster player, it's still the wrong pass. That's the
I
problem
agree
I
with you.
have.
I
with
agree
it.
with you. But also, it was another possible mitigating factor. It was on his poor hand. It was on his left hand. So, yeah, look, if you play as a team,
You win as a team, you lose as a team. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not really into apportioning blame on one man for making. It was a poor decision.
No.
I'm sure he'd be the very first person.
I'm sure
that
it's
will-
killing him. Yeah, I'm sure he's.
Because but you do have to look at the events that shaped the game. I mean, that was one of them. I think the other event, I think Backy's Bolter should have been sin binned in the 5th minute.
Straight away,
he
yeah.
made 2 professional fouls, one after another, and he wasn't sin binned.
Yeah.
The one on Healy was very cynical, B, a little bit on the vicious side, and C, 25 yards offside. So, you know, how is that? And plus, you're in a potential try scoring position. How is that not a card?
Well, you see, the thing is, the ref penalised both. Both were penalties. I mean, everybody's been talking about the choke on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a when you're swimming through them all. Sometimes you get caught by a shark, kind of thing.
Yeah, but when he lifts you up by the neck,
Yeah,
you
but-
tap him on the thing, and he's still.
When the referee in a big match allows 2 pieces of professional fouling to go unpunished, it sets a tone for the entire
I
match.
didn't see much of our profession. Now, maybe it was all done in sleight of hand. And
Maybe we're better at it.
Maybe we were, and we didn't get seen or caught. But I just think you fight fire with fire. That would be my personal.
Yeah, but then you're the one that gets sent off, you know, which is a
if
pain
you
in
get
the arse.
caught.
Of
You
course.
don't have to retaliate there and then.
True.
You pick
It's almost impossible not to get caught in a modern.
Very hard these days
Yeah.
to get away with the stuff
mean,
you can
Well,
get
the
away
boys
with.
did in 2 of the instances you've just referred to. Anyway, look,
True.
they had 60%. Like, we can talk about it. Like, they did have 60% of possession. I thought that they were a little bit sharper at certain points in the game. They played the territory a little bit better. When we kicked aimlessly. When they kicked, they seemed to have kicked
Their
with a
kicking
bit-
game was much better than ours. Their chase, the kicking game, it was much better than ours. I'm not sure if the kick was better or the chase was better, but actually, their chase was better than our chase. Our chase was often non-existent. They used the ball they had more wisely than we did. Having said that, you know, for all you're saying that, I mean, after 80 minutes, it was dead even.
And that's the galling thing, is that the game was there for the taking.
Yeah, and Jimmy Goppert for the third time. You know, we're going to trot this in head for the third time this season. You know, if he had got the one against Connacht, we would have got an extra 3 points in the league. If he had got the one against Treviso, we would have got an extra 2 points in the league. That's 5 points. Now, I know there's an element of if me auntie had balls, she'd be me uncle, but if he'd have got that one, obviously we'd be in a Heineken Cup final, European Cup final. It's just, should we have set Madigan up to drop the goal? Should we have, you know, what was the mistake?
The question is, where was Madigan? Where was Rob Kearney? Now,
Well, I
It
suggest
might- it
that
might not-
Madigan's head may not.
That was before.
That's
no, it was
Everything
actually,
happened
yeah.
in extra
No,
time.
you're right. Yeah. Where now, there's 2 reasons for that. One, the players don't fancy it. Don't think that's the case. Madigan is never, as we saw with the thing, he's not a shrinking
Doesn't
violet
shirk
when
them,
it comes to
no.
doing something fancy, or not taking responsibility for something. Same with Rob Kearney. Rob Kearney has hit big drop goals in the past.
Yeah.
So the question is, why are we constantly setting up, you know, our worst drop goal of the 3 to take drop goals?
Do we practice it?
Well, we'll have to.
Is it you know, you'd have to think, especially after it happening to us twice, that we would spend a bit of
Well,
time
maybe
on
he
it.
hits everyone in training. Like, again, we don't know.
Yeah,
Just-
could
just
be. Yeah.
like, it could
I mean,
well.
we are a team that knows how important drop goals are in European matches.
Or in any matches.
No, but particularly in big European matches, we have a history of scoring drop goals in big European matches. So I don't know. I just think it's poor preparation by. One would have to assume the coaching staff, because it's not like the 2 players would be the kind of players who'd hide. The other 2 players. So the fact that the play is designed to put Gopperth into that situation would, from what we know, like you say, he could be hitting every single one of them in training, but from what we know, looks like a bad play.
But you know what this point is? Once again, and I don't know how many matches it is this year, that we've had a lead. And we have failed to...
Hold it.
We didn't go asleep on the lead this time, though.
We failed to build on the lead. Like, if you're 9-3 up after 20 minutes, that's when you should be trying to say, right, let's motor in. If we got a try at that point, I doubt very much they would have come back. Similarly, like, I mean, the match, again, I think we mentioned it last week, there was 3 or 4 matches during the last sort of 2 months. That
we build ourselves into situations quite well.
Yeah.
I mean, we played ourselves into that game quite nicely. I mean, the kick-off aside, we played ourselves into the game quite nicely, progressed 9-3 up, and then we don't push on. And it's like you say, same with Bath game, did exactly the same thing. You know, we didn't convert the bonus point against Dragons.
We did against Bath, though.
I know, but what I'm saying is we get ourselves into situations, we progress, we play ourselves into games, we build positions from whence you go forth and win. And then we don't go forth.
Yeah, I don't know if we had to crack that game open though and scored a try at a crucial time, you wouldn't know. They could have thrown the shackles off as well and put us to the sword. You just don't know. I mean, it's one of those things.
No.
What I was impressed with though was they picked a team for a street fight. Like they put Joanne Smith in instead of Armitage. It has me calling them Armitage now. Armitage, and they set up their like the back 5 of their pack. I've mentioned it before. Is Williams, Botha, Schmidt, Massawi, and Juan Martin Fernandez Labe, who is an absolute. All of those guys are absolute street brawlers, and we stood up to them. Like. They didn't have, they didn't bully us. Their idea, I would say, judging by that team, was to bully us off the park for 60 minutes, then bring on Armitage and a couple of classy backs to put us to the sword. And, it didn't happen for them. We were not bullyable. They tried, they failed. And that's, and we didn't have to resort to the cynical stuff either that we could see anyway.
Was it
so
Ulster,
that impressed me about us.
They put 60 points on Ulster in the Champions Cup in the pool stages, right?
Exactly.
And we did stand up to them because, a lot of people were writing them off. A lot of Leinster supporters were writing the team off. And I'm sure that's embarrassing to these lads who've won Grand Slams, 2 championships in the last couple of years with Ireland. Pro 12s and of course Heineken Cups. Like that's nearly insulting to someone like Jamie Heaslip that you're writing them off.
I mean, people were writing off our back row against. I mean, Jamie Heaslip and Sean O'Brien never write them off. I mean,
they both had good games.
And they both.
Well.
I mean, because that's
the back row played very well.
Yeah, the back row played very. Actually, our pack played well. But
I thought our back beat their pack.
Whenever a job needs to, whenever Ireland have their backs to the wall or Leinster, it's always Jamie Heaslip who stands up, and it's always Sean O'Brien who stands up. And Geordie Murphy was, for a young player, I thought was superb.
And for kind of the least famous of the 3 in the back row, I thought he had a super game. And
he's not a man for the backward step.
But what epitomised it was when he was the one that chased up and put pressure on Michalak and sort of set a marker down and set the tone of, well, if we're going to kick to you, we're going to chase you down.
Yeah, come follow me, lads.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people were saying, "Oh, we don't have a." And the biggest thing is, if our back row was going to be so destroyed by the Toulon back row, then why did Toulon spend most of last summer trying to get 2/3 of our back row to play for them? That was always our back row was always going to be able to. I was always confident they'd match them.
Yeah. Well, why don't we have a look at Sean's try? Speaking of the back row, like it came at a very opportune moment. We needed this try to get back into it.
Yeah. And for once, we got a decent.
You notice they're 13 and 11
drive,
in.
Yeah.
I'm wondering where maybe we'd taken forwards out of the line out, played in midfield, and we took advantage of that. Might be a nice little tactical thing that we did there.
Yeah.
They took guys out to match it up.
Yeah, and we had 7 minutes left. Unfortunately, we couldn't
couldn't get over the
we
line.
couldn't get it back, you know. But we showed though.
We threw everything at it,
we
though.
threw the kitchen sink at the lads.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing. There's the whole thing about, you know, never die wondering, like Eddie O'Sullivan always says, or don't leave it out in the pitch. I mean, they didn't. I thought they were superb. I thought the team were really, really good. I mean, people could say that they could have played better. They could have been more adventurous. They could have been, you know, I don't know, more hoity-toity, Corinthian, blah, 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 blah. But the thing is, Corinth fell.
It was probably one of the few semi-final defeats that I've been at that we've actually gone out swinging, and that's all you can ask for your team.
Absolutely.
You think back to the match in Lansdowne Road against Munster,
God,
where
yeah.
you know we were
Stop.
embarrassed. You think back to the match in
Leicester.
Toulouse, in Toulouse in 2010, when the better team by far beat us.
We gave them a good go considering our injuries and
Yeah, but
that we ended up with three
wiped.
hookers in
we
the
got
pack.
wiped out in the end.
We did.
Yeah. And we didn't get wiped out. I mean,
But like when I was walking out of the ground, I felt disappointed, but I felt proud of being from Leinster, and my
Yeah.
team made me feel proud. And it was one of the few times that I walked out of a semi-final feeling that my team had done justice to itself.
Yeah.
one of the reasons why there's a sense of disappointment about this match that's different from the other ones that you discussed is because, you know, despite the fact that we were playing the most expensively assembled team in the history of the game,
We made
right?
them look
a
average.
team that has a bigger budget than all of Irish rugby, right? We took them to extra time, and you know, but for a swing of a pass, a kick of a ball, it could have gone either way. It could have been us in the final instead of them.
Did you
And-
see Mr. Boujalel jumping around?
Yeah, when you see him going mental on the
Well, that's-
touchline like that when they scored that try, that shows the pressure that team was under.
Yeah.
So we have a lot to be proud of, and the reason we have to be proud is because the disappointment we feel is the disappointment generated by how close we came, as opposed to disappointment of not showing up, like say in
Yeah.
2006,
Yeah.
or you know, just been pure second best like in 2010.
One piece of bad news was McFadden's injury. Like,
Yeah.
I know he's out for the rest of the season, but the season's only probably going to be 3 games.
Well, he might be joined by Marty Moore as well. That's
You were saying
apparently
he's got-
there was,
having
there
an
was I caught something there on Twitter just before we started recording that he has to go and have an operation,
Oh dear.
which will put him out for the rest of the season,
Yeah.
along with Kane Douglas, who's out for the rest of the season.
Well, perhaps like
Reece Ruddock.
Yeah.
the selectors, the Irish selectors, are saying, well, the likelihood is you don't have anything else to play for. Maybe have the operation now, so be back in time for World
I
Cup.
would say that even if a team did have something to play for, if a player was, you know, in danger of missing the World Cup, that player would be mothballed.
I'd say somebody like Marty Moore, who's kind of vital to our pack for the World Cup. That I definitely say that, put that as a priority.
Well, I'd say if I don't know, if Connacht are in a bit of a street fight for their Heineken Cup place, I'd say if there was a bit of a niggle with, say, Robbie Henshaw, I would say that he would be pulled. I'd say Munster who are chasing, you know, the top of the thing. If there was a niggle with Paul O'Connell or I don't know, did they have another Irish player?
Murray.
Yeah, Conor Murray. They'd be mothballed as well. Because we said it before. We said it at the beginning of the series. It's in the first episode of this season that this year is all about the World Cup. I mean,
Yeah.
it's Pro 12, it's Heineken Cup, blah, blah, blah. It's all about the World Cup. Irish rugby is all about the World Cup at the moment.
I'm just glad that Matt O'Connor is the Leinster coach next year, so you can take the blame for all that.
Yeah,
You know,
Well, considering
because God knows he's going to get it.
considering we've been reminded all the time about the national team taking priorities and how they're affected by, you know, how Leinster have been affected by injuries and the national call-ups. Was he right or wrong then to pick a kind of a seconds rather than picking that team to play the Dragons last weekend?
I think he was a couple of sandwiches short of a picnic last week, and you know, in more ways than one. But in terms of players, I think he should have thrown a couple more in. You know, I really think he.
I think he should have had a couple on the. I think he should. His
You
first.
said
his
it
starting-
last week, Dave,
His starting
exactly.
team was probably fine.
He should have
had
had
a couple
a few
of
extra.
the guys on the bench, so
Get
that
him
if
out
we
of
did
trouble.
get into trouble, which we did, they'd be able to come on without expending too much energy or killing themselves, unless they get an unfortunate injury. But that could happen getting out of the bath.
And let's face
That
it.
they were there to drag us out of the hole we found ourselves in, and they weren't.
Let's face it. The big, the gap was 7 days between those matches. It's the one after. It's the Ulster match that was going to be the problem, and we were gambling based on the fact that we'd need players to show up in both games. Now, had we won on Sunday, we wouldn't really care about the Ulster match. We'd be just jumping up and down trying to get at Claremont. But the fact is we didn't, so we've got to try and play for the only competition we're in, and we've a just about mathematical chance
The thing is,
of doing it. So while we have a mathematical chance, which might end on Friday, we've got to go for it. You've got to ask the guys who stood up on Sunday. A lot of them are going to have to stand up again. You know?
I can't see any reason whatsoever under this beautiful bright sun that we have at the moment why the most full choice team that's available to O'Connor won't be selected. Right? Matt O'Connor will want to put it because it's his last chance. This is our last shot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we don't take at least 4 and probably 5 points out of this Ulster game, we have no chance of any trophy whatsoever this season.
Yeah.
Right? So the only reason he won't pick the strongest team available to him is if he's not let.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about it is
First time since 2010.
Yeah.
That we haven't been
We
in.
haven't won a trophy.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about it is that like we could easily if we managed to struggle into 4th place, we could easily win the bloody thing. You know, because I backed this team, the team that was playing on Sunday. I backed them against anyone in the league.
Nobody else in the Pro 12 could have lived with Toulon last Sunday except us. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. Bad and all as we've been this year, and we have been pretty poor. I mean, we're still, when we play well, we're still a level above anything else in the Pro 12. I mean, that's the reality of the situation.
And let's face it,
you can cease your internal dialogue. That's the truth.
We've got O'Brien and Healy that people have been going on for the whole year about having O'Brien and Healy missing. We've got them back. Okay, we might have lost another couple of characters along the way, but if we could somehow stumble into an away semi-final, I'd fancy us to give Munster, Glasgow, Ospreys, whoever.
Maybe not Ospreys.
A good run, a good run in their home. It's a one-off game. Who knows? But unfortunately, we've left it far too much for us ourselves to do. So we're now dependent on winning our last 3 games and having Ulster or Ospreys fall over somewhere, which doesn't look likely. So we'll see.
You don't think it looks likely, no?
Ulster have to lose all 3 games.
Yeah.
So that's Munster
But
at home.
they have a tough
Glasgow
schedule.
away.
Like they play us, right?
They do have a week off in between, and they've had a week off last week, and
I know. They still have to play us. Like I can't remember. Like I'd say they've won 3 of the last 20 matches against Leinster.
Yeah, records.
Yeah.
Our record, if you want to go on records, our record away this season, we've beaten Cardiff and Zebre, I think that's it. So
It's not a swinging record. Ulster do have. There is an opportunity for Ulster to screw things up.
Well, they've Munster, who is also vying with them in the to get maybe a home semi-final so they're still in the heel of the hunt, and their final match is against Glasgow, who
could be
who
going for
might
a
need a
home
win
semi
against.
as well. Yeah.
He might need a win to top Munster.
So it's not like that they're playing a Connacht or
it's not impossible.
There is an element of
an Edinburgh.
There is also an element of this of us trying to convince ourselves.
Of course.
But we
massively unlikely.
First thing that has to happen is we have to beat Ulster, right?
Yeah.
Everything else after that is whatever. But we have to beat Ulster. If we don't, forget it.
It's gone.
I mean, it's gone. So if we beat Ulster, that turns a screw in their head. Because then, okay, they've got rid of one of the big boys from south of the border, and then up comes the next one. So I mean, there is that area there. The only thing we can do is concentrate on Friday, beat Ulster, hopefully.
Yeah.
If we have our full strength team out, we could do it.
I'm going to stay with my Ulster friends.
Or as full of strength as we'll have available to us. I mean, Fergus McFadden will be out, but I presume Dave Carney come in. Marty Moore may well be out if what I read earlier was true, but we've still got Ross and Furlong.
Oh yeah.
No
worries there.
We've got the rest of the team that played so well against Toulon. A team that put 60 points on Ulster earlier this season.
Yeah. So yeah, it depends on how they recover mentally and physically from that game though. I mean, physically, hugely damaging game, playing 100 minutes for whatever players. Toner played 100 minutes. Sean O'Brien and Jamie Easlip, I think, both played 100 minutes, didn't they?
Yeah.
Who went off? There's a Charlie Murphy that went off in the back row.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I mean, who cares? I mean,
Gopperth played 100 minutes.
They're young, fit men.
That's what they're
Carney
paid to
played
do.
100
That's
minutes.
what they're paid
They're
to
a
do.
long time retired.
I mean, they can.
True.
If they want to recover, they can recover on somebody else's dime.
And then there's the mental side of the defeat, how that's going to affect.
Well, that's the big thing.
Well, for me, I would show, if I were the coach and having had that defeat in the gateway, my most important thing would be to show Ian Madigan that there's still belief in him.
confidence.
Yeah, I would start him
At 10.
at 10.
With Darcy at 10.
With Darcy at 12. But that's what I would have done anyway, because I think that's our best.
Well, like we've had Gottbert here for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't really worked, you'd say. Has it?
No,
think so.
I don't think it
Don't
is.
think so.
I don't think
so.
he's-
So therefore, we owe him and he owes us nothing because the season's kind of pretty much done.
The guy's
The guy's-
been rallied.
What?
He's been rallied all year. He's played nearly every minute
I
of
know.
every game, you know.
So he's going now. So at this point, we should be concentrating on what's going to happen next season. And if Madigan, I mean, who knows after that performance, Madigan may not make it on the plane to the World Cup. So maybe it's time to be looking at him for out half when Sexton is away.
His versatility puts him on the plane.
Yeah, I think.
Paddy Jackson is
he's-
probably is in better
He's
form.
on the plane too.
Oh, he's not going to the World Cup as an out half. He's going to the World Cup as a utility back. Because he is a utility back. But the thing is, I would not because of anything against Jimmy. I want to show faith in Ian Madigan and say, okay, that happened. Back on the horse, boy, and this is what you do. I also think that you're saying about Jimmy Goppert. He's been here for 2 years and it hasn't really worked. It has, but I think it's worked from the performance of. He's been as good as say Sean Byrne or Matt Bergquist. I think that's what he was signed to be.
Well, probably, but see, the thing is, like, if you look who came in to buy him, Wasps came in to buy him.
Oh yeah.
They're mid-table.
But that's all I think he was.
and that's probably what he is. But like it didn't work for him, and it didn't work for Madigan because when Sexton left 2 years ago, we were saying, well,
Madigan's gonna step up.
Gottbert's going to come in and probably act as Madigan's guide and his second
backup
fiddle
guy,
and his
yeah.
backup, and he's a bit more experienced and older, and he'll guide him into it. And
He'll close
help
out
him.
the games.
Yeah, sort of thing. And then they became rivals, and neither of them really said, "Well, I'm the number 10 in this team." And as a result, Gottbert was picked for the majority of the bigger games, but he didn't lay down any authority in that position.
But my big disappointment about that whole thing was, especially like last season, was that it was all set up for Madigan to be the man, and Madigan showed mental weakness. He showed weakness. I mean, it's as simple as that. He was psychologically weak. He didn't take the position that was there for him. He didn't grab it. He let somebody else come in and get a hand on the cup.
Again, I don't think it's mental weakness.
I do think it. I mean, it was. I do think so because
I just think he doesn't have the right instincts for control in the game. He's too much of a flair player. He's too much of a chuck the ball around player to be. His brain just doesn't seem to have the stuff for controlling.
I don't agree with that because when he was thrust into the position of starting out half in the Pro 12 teams for the 2 previous seasons, he was able to control games. But I think that in those years,
coming on after Johnny,
in those years, he had a safety net, and that safety net's
yeah.
name was Johnny Sexton. I think without that safety net and him being there on his own and having to be the man on his own, I think that got to him somehow.
I think they didn't show any faith in him, and I think
there's an element of that too.
I think that it doesn't matter whether you're on a rugby pitch or in work or even in an amateur rugby team. That if your coach doesn't show you any faith in you, it depends on the type of person. If you are an exceptionally confident person, and everyone is different.
Which I think he is, to be fair.
If you're an exceptionally confident person, like someone like Johnny Sexton, who just takes it on the chin and rolls with it and goes for it, that's fine if you can do that. If you need somebody to have an arm around your shoulder and to you have to feel that there's been faith put in you and that you repay him, then I think that's the type of character Madigan is. Whereas I think they were just said, you're in a room together, there's one knife, boys, off you go, and scrap for it.
Natural selection.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of a draw between them because
you see, I think. I mean,
well, that's the unfortunate thing. It was a draw.
There is no rugby reason whatsoever over the last 2 years. At any point over the last 2 years, there's been no rugby reason to pick Madigan over Goppert or Goppert over Madigan. So, to a certain extent, we've gone with the guy who's in position until he plays just so badly he has to be dropped. Then the next guy comes in and he's there for a while until he's dropped, etc., etc., etc. Or he goes off at the Irish camp and the other guy comes in. And the thing is, for a team that's hoping to challenge at the business end of Europe, you kind of need an out half.
Yeah.
Well, but we've
And
had
we
the
don't
same
have it.
problem with 12 and 13. You know, we've got the exact same thing where there's no clear candidate. It's our main axis of attacking between backs and forwards is there's no clear, and 9 possibly as well. Who should start, Boss or Redden? They're both demonstrated that they should and they shouldn't.
I think yeah,
So-
Dave mentioned the team. It should be, and it should have been on Sunday. It should have been Madigan, Darcy, who's got 70 or 80 Irish caps, who was the best player on the pitch against the Dragons.
It's the Dragons, though. Has he got the legs against Toulon at this? I'm not saying he hasn't. I'm
Well, we would have found out.
posing the question.
Well, look, you know, can you think of one break that our 12 or 13 really did in the entire game last week? Not really. I can't. And then I'd Theo at 13, and I'd have those 3, and I'd have Darcy besides. Like, if you're going to have someone like Darcy guiding through a guy who's probably played 10 rugby union games in the last 10 years, surely that's a guy that you want behind him, not the fella who's a bit callow behind the ears, who was originally playing as a 10 for Leinster, never really made it there, was shifted out to 12, hasn't really made it there. Is he the guy that you want to guide through your rugby league?
Then the
I
other
think
the other
all
side of
three
that
of
is
us are
if you
agreed on
have
that
Darcy there as well,
combination.
he can help talk. He can provide a certain kind of a level of support for Madigan at 10 as well. Look, I mean, it's
But it seems madness that you're not using your assets to the best of advantage.
But
for this.
are you absolutely confident in, say, Madigan at 10 over Gopperth? Are you absolutely confident?
I
in
think-
I'm not
Darcy?
absolutely confident of any of them.
I
Well,
think
exactly.
but
That's
if
the point I'm making.
If I had a €2 coin and I threw it up in the air and it's heads or tails, like,
Exactly.
I mean, to
That's
quote
the point
a
I'm
former
making.
Irish Taoiseach for the second week running, it's a case of snakes and daggers.
Snakes and daggers.
Because it's 6 and 1 and a half a dozen the other. I mean, they're both
As it happens,
they're both magenta.
I think we all would have
Actually,
picked.
that's not the word. It's not even the colour. They're both magnolia.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I think both of us, or all 3 of us, are agreed that we would have
You
picked
wouldn't have either of
Madigan. We would have picked Madigan, Darcy, and Theo. But would you have gone? And yes, and there's no other possible option.
no.
No,
No.
there is, because that's the whole thing. It's a
But
grey
I might
area.
have been looking at that combination back last December,
Oh yeah.
and I might have been looking at it, certainly at 2 of them more often during the Six Nations. And then I might have been looking at them playing all 3 of them against the Dragons the previous week.
Yeah.
And even if we had have played those 3 lads against Bath, they would have had Bath, they would have Dragons, they would have had,
Yeah.
so you've got the 2 biggest games of the season were played within 3 weeks of each other.
And in fairness, he stuck with, he
did,
stuck
yeah.
with he nailed his colours to the mast and he stuck with them. He couldn't really do anything
So
else.
I believed that Madigan had a real future at inside centre, and I'm not sure that I don't still believe that.
Maybe you need to surround him with more experience and better players.
Maybe you need to, it's exactly it, and I think that next
And that's
season
what's going to happen.
he's going to have outside him, he's going to have, or inside him, depending on inside him, he's going to have, perhaps one of the best. So that might be
And
an
also,
advantage to him.
Issa Nasewa is going to be floating around there somewhere. Whether he's, he could end up anywhere really certainly anywhere in the back 3.
I heard there was an announcement today that the deal is closer to being signed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
it's
Matt
gonna be
O'Connor
an
said
ace.
if he was available, you'd be mad not to go for him. So
Yeah.
it's hard to know. I mean, this game against Ulster is I mean, there's so much at stake for a game that could ultimately mean nothing. I mean, we could win against Ulster. We could put 5 points on them, and the next week they could go out and beat Munster,
and it's all over.
and that's all she wrote.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's an awful lot at stake for a game that could actually mean nothing, kind of thing.
But
But
you got to play it.
you got to go out swinging, as you said, Jason. You do, and that's all we can do. All we can do is give everything we have next Friday.
Let's
night.
not forget, because we lost on Sunday, we'll have a week off. The following, we have 2 weeks to nurse our broken whatever's our bruised
Yeah.
bits and
Like,
pieces.
and that's
so
one match we didn't really talk about too much was the Clermont-Sarries game. I'm glad Clermont got to the final.
another arm wrestle,
Yeah.
another game that was tight as a nun's knickers.
We said that last week. I think you said it last week, Jason. Semi-finals are always rubbish. They often are very, very poor games in terms of.
I loved our semi-final because I was emotionally involved in it.
But the quality of the match itself, if you weren't involved, you would have thought.
Of course. But I
was emotionally involved in the
enthralled.
Claremont game as well. And I'm glad, and I hope they go on and beat Toulon.
But
I'm torn on that, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
are you?
Yeah, you want to be knocked out by the champions, is it?
There's an element of that to it. I want to be knocked out of champions. There's also an element of, I get a bit sick of this Claremont eternal victims thing. The other side of that is I don't want Toulon getting up on our level,
3 in a row, yeah.
and I don't want them doing it 3 in a row. So there's it's snakes and daggers and swings and.
I'll be upsetting the apple
Toulouse
turd.
got to 3 finals in a row in the noughties, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
They didn't win them.
They lost one
They
to
lost one,
Rob
yeah.
Howley,
Yeah.
the one in the middle.
What was he doing? What is he doing?
Well, at least it was 80-odd thousand in Twickenham to see that day. There's only going to be 31 this time.
There are currently 30,000 tickets sold.
Jesus. Jesus.
Toulon returned 40% of their allocation.
I heard that,
I believe
yeah.
Claremont have returned a certain amount of theirs as well. They expect of actual hard sales at this point about 38,000, including the 2 finals.
Of which maybe 35,000 will actually turn up
Yeah.
on the day
Like,
because
there's got to be loads of people in Ireland with them that say,
Yeah.
I'm not going
Yeah,
to.
I have my tickets. I don't know. I buy them every year. Like, I mean, I'll try and shift them on, but I don't think I'll be able to because I know that what they're going to have to do to even get anything even resembling a full is they're going to have to start giving giveaways and all this kind of stuff. It'd be very hard to shift tickets at face value.
an interesting game in the Stoop with
Yeah.
Edinburgh and Gloucester.
But you see, the thing is, what I'm hoping for is I'm
Two
hoping
Scottish
that they give
scrum
away loads of tickets and fill the place, right? So if they fill the stadium, right, with no gate returns, still has to be policed, still has to be staffed. It'll cost a fortune, and we're
they have
still
to give us
guaranteed our
20
cut of
grand
the
or
money.
whatever.
So who's it going to cost? It's going to cost the English clubs who are already at breaking point.
But you've got to question the rationale to play a quarter-final, a semi-final, and a final within a month of each other.
Totally.
Like, you know,
Especially
you could
just
have-
after the
I know it
Six
doesn't happen
Nations.
too often in rugby that the away team wins these big games, but you could seriously have a situation where you're an away team in a quarter-final, the semi-final, and then you've got to go away to a final. Like, you know, you've only got a certain amount of cash in your pocket, like to pay. To go
We
to
see
these
that
things.
wasn't considered to be a problem because under this new arrangement we'd have 2 English teams in the final, and they'd only just have to drive down the road. That didn't work out for them.
But they
the
don't
French
give away tickets for these matches.
They should have had it in Milan,
Twickenham
like-
and,
Yeah.
and
They-
uh,
they- but
Should
they're
have had
not-
it in the San Siro
they're
like
not
they
very
wanted
bright.
to.
They're not very bright. I mean, what I can't see. I mean, okay, I can understand the rationale of why it's been done the way it is. The French want all this European stuff done and dusted by the time May comes around, so they can
Yeah.
run their barrage uninterrupted. But here's the thing:
Which still doesn't finish until the 13th of July,
I know,
of June.
it's crazy stuff. But here's the thing: I mean, the European tournament has been made look a laughing stock now. And it will. I mean, it doesn't matter even if they fill the ground, right?
It's only the first year, though, Dave. In fairness, you got to give it.
Yeah, but it's not the first year. It's the 20-somethings year
Okay.
because
on.
we know the reality of the
if there was
situation.
two French clubs playing in Twickenham 4 years ago, like 12 years ago they played in Dublin and
That's
there
right.
was 25,000 at it.
That's right.
Similarly, if they played it in whether it was Cardiff or London or Edinburgh, would they fill it?
But
with 2 French
if
teams?
they had gone with the San Siro,
They might have done.
They might have, because it's a bit closer to France, and it's a big day out for everyone else. So they'll be going, oh yeah, you might even get a lot of Italians in it. You know?
Think so.
I mean, how many times have we been in London in the last couple of years?
I don't know, 5 maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, Irish people buy a lot of Heineken Cup final or European Cup final tickets.
A lot of Irish people live in there as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Irish people living there. But no, what I'm saying is, in terms of the casual or the rugby fan whose team isn't involved,
Yeah.
would go, but not to Twickenham, not this, not again. I mean, if it was in the San Siro, you'd probably look at going.
Yeah,
But
for the crack.
they made their bed and they can lie in it, devoid of cash, which was the opposite of what they thought they'd be lying in.
Well, a couple of years' time, the way they have competition set up, if it ever does start making money, we're not getting it. If it's losing money, we're still getting our due. But once it starts making it, the percentages start going in favour
I don't think this
of the
competition.
English and the French.
I don't think it's going to last very long. I think that what's going to happen is within the next 5 years we'll be playing in a British league, and then what you'll have
possible.
is over at the start of the summer, you'll have a cup competition
You might
between
have-
the top English.
You might have a Bateman Cup sort of equivalent, you know, with the four, well, in Ireland, the four provincial cups play off against each other. And you might have something like that you could have, I don't know, the top 2 or the top 4 of the British and Irish League versus the top 4 of the French.
That's what's going to happen. I think you're going to have the Irish teams will play in a British and Irish League, and then you'll have, like you say, there'll be a playoff, a bit like the Celtic Cup used to be between ourselves and the French league, and it'll be at the beginning of summer when the French have finished their league, we finished our league, and blah blah, and that'll be the new European Cup. That's just the way it's going, because ultimately what you want is big revenue being generated all throughout the season.
But you got like the player welfare. Like you're talking about the concussions, the players retiring, their careers being cut short with horrific injuries. If you're asking guys to play, like Jamie Heaslip's body must be or Sean O'Brien's body must be in bits.
Jamie Heaslip's body's made of some mad earth element or something.
See what he's like when he's about
When he's
40,
50.
yeah. Because like
the thing,
you think that he's sorry, Dave.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the guys have played 4 or 5 six nation matches. Then they go in, they play a quarter final, a semi final, and a final, and then they're asked to go the following week to compete in their National League matches, and some of them might be going for, you know, semi-finals and finals of those competitions. Like, there's going to be a point where the players or the unions are going to say, "Sorry, lads, this is unacceptable."
there's a point. The rugby as a professional game is still at a point that's not dissimilar to where professional soccer was in the 50s and 60s, where to a certain extent the players were pieces of meat. Highly priced, highly trained pieces of meat, but pieces of meat nonetheless. And then obviously players start to take the power themselves, and you have the current situation in football where, you know, they're highly pampered prima donnas. And that's the way rugby will eventually go, unless something happens to make sure that player welfare is placed on a higher platform than it currently is. Because I don't think anyone, players, unions, clubs, regions, whatever you're having yourself, want to end up in a situation where we have a player ego driven sport like football is. And I love football. I love football, but I don't like the idea of a player being loyal to a club is weird nowadays. It's weird in football. It's still the norm in rugby, and I want to keep that. Even I don't mind guys going to Toulon. I don't mind guys going to France or England because they're professional rugby players, and you have to go and you want to play in different things. That doesn't bother me. But the idea of going for a year or two and then walking out halfway through a contract because somebody else offers you a bigger contract, I don't want to see that kind of thing happen. But at the same, if rugby isn't careful, that's how it'll go. Because what you'll have is an adversarial system where the players will be against the clubs rather than the players, clubs, regions, whatever you're having yourself, working together for the good of the game.
Yeah, well, you've also got the fact that, you know, soccer is a very skillful sport. It's not as combative as rugby in terms of you're not putting your life on the line, your body on the line to as big a degree.
I do have to interrupt there, because at the time when football began the move to where it is now in the 60s, football was an exceptionally physical game.
It was a bit more.
It was. I mean, the idea of breaking the player's legs.
Norman bites your legs.
And once that,
the referees do give them an awful lot more protection.
They do now, yeah. But at the time when the player started to move, instead of working with the clubs, they started to work against the clubs. That the game was a very physical game. So anyway,
suppose yeah. But now it's you know the element of do or die for your local lads, or do or die. You know, you don't have that so much until okay, the guys bought into it, and they do have a strong team ethos at this stage after whatever 5 years of kicking around. But you can't buy the loyalty that you get from growing up in the place and all of that. You know, Sexton wants to come back here. He wants to play for where his family, his friends, his, you know, everybody he knows it's from. And they're the same in Munster and Ulster, and you know. Yes, you get you get guys bought in who. But if they're in a team, like guys like East in the Sea, with guys like Dougie Howlett, guys like Pienaar, guys like whoever in Connacht, but
Neil Nakora, George Nupo, great signings for Connacht as well.
There you go. You get those guys into a team full of locals, and they buy into it. But it's when the team is like 23 guys from 14 countries that you lose a grip on that. I mean, what does that mean? What does Leinster mean to you? I don't know. It's a paycheck.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a good player and I'll give it my all.
There was 10
But it's not-
French internationals playing for Toulon.
It's not the
Start
same.
of 15.
Midi Olympic always pick their
Is that
team.
not illegal?
Well, you see, they'll all be travelling on EU or EU friendly passports.
Mm.
Midi Olympic always pick their team of the weekend. And of course, obviously, there was only 2 games this weekend. But they always pick, the other thing they always do is they always pick them from the winners. So it was a team picked from Clermont and Toulon. And there was 3 French players in the team.
Wow.
Says
Well,
it
there
all.
you go.
Well, anyway, boys, fascinating as ever. And thanks a million for watching. Cheers.